I really want. He said, "Well, take up the saxophone. You'll always work with the saxophone." I said, "No, I don't want to play the saxophone. I want to play the bass." So I managed to convince him to guarantee.
Imagine being part of one of the greatest rock bands in history, creating music that millions love, but feeling like an outsider.
Because I was like 14. Be the guarantor for the, what do you call it, layaway? Yeah. And then I paid for
in your own group. That's the heartbreaking truth John Paul Jones faced during his time with Led Zeppelin. At 78,
by playing organ in church, and which I got $50 a year. A year. But they just covered the payments for the bass.
He's finally opening up about the struggles, the loneliness, and the triumphs that shaped his incredible journey. Today, we're going to walk through his life, from his early days surrounded by music to the wild ride with Led Zeppelin and beyond. His story is full of heart, challenges, and a love for music that never faded. Let's dive in and discover the man behind the music. John Paul Jones, born John Baldwin on January 3, 1946, in Sidcup, Kent, England, was surrounded by music from the moment he could walk. His dad, Joe Baldwin, was a pianist who played with big bands, and his mom was a singer and dancer. Picture a little boy, just 5 years old, sitting at a piano with his dad, learning to play simple tunes. By the time he was 10, his mom was teaching him the saxophone, and at 14, he picked up the bass guitar. Music wasn't just something he did, it was who he was. His family moved a lot because of his dad's job, so John got to hear all kinds of music, from jazz to classical to rock. He went to Christ's College in Blackheath, where he studied music theory and learned how to write and arrange songs. Even as a kid, he was serious about music, but finding a steady path in the music world wasn't easy. He had to work hard to prove himself in a tough industry. In the early 1960s, John was already making a name for himself as a session musician. That means he played music for other artists' recordings, kind of like a hired helper. He was amazing at playing bass, keyboards, and even guitar, so he worked with big names like the Rolling Stones, Donovan, and Dusty Springfield. Imagine being in a studio, surrounded by famous musicians, and knowing you're helping create hit songs. In 1964, he released his first solo single called Baja under the name John Paul Jones, a name he decided to keep. He also worked as a musical director for TV shows, which showed how talented and versatile he was. But even with all this success, he was still searching for something bigger, something that would let him shine. That something came in 1968 when John joined forces with Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, and John Bonham to form Led Zeppelin. This wasn't just any band. It was a group that would change rock music forever. John's bass playing and keyboard skills helped create some of their biggest hits, like Stairway to Heaven, Whole Lotta Love, and Kashmir. His music was like magic, blending rock with blues, folk, and even classical sounds. But being in Led Zeppelin wasn't always easy. The band toured all over the world, playing sold-out shows, but the constant travel was exhausting. John was different from the others. While Jimmy Page and John Bonham loved to party, John was quieter, more focused on his family and the music. He didn't fit in with the wild rock star lifestyle. Sometimes he'd change his hairstyle or stay in a different hotel just to avoid fans and keep to himself. He loved exploring cities alone, away from the chaos of the band. Life on tour was tough for John. He'd often only see his bandmates at soundchecks or shows. After performances while the others partied, John would go his own way, sometimes staying in a completely different hotel. This distance grew over time, especially as the band's drummer, John Bonham, struggled with drugs and alcohol. Bonham's behavior got so wild that the band had to book rooms on different floors or even in different hotels to avoid trouble. John even started traveling separately, meeting the band only when it was time to play. It was lonely, and it made him feel like he didn't fully belong. Despite this, John's music kept the band grounded. His keyboard work on songs like No Quarter was a showcase of his talent, but even that caused tension later on. By the mid-1990s, things got really hard for John. Jimmy Page and Robert Plant recorded an album called No Quarter without inviting him. This hurt deeply because No Quarter was his song, one he wrote and poured his heart into during Led Zeppelin's peak. It felt like a betrayal. When Led Zeppelin was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995, John made a joke while accepting his award, saying, "Thank you for remembering my phone number." It was his way of pointing out how left out he felt. Robert Plant even made a mean comment around that time, saying John was parking cars while they were working. Ouch, that must have stung. But John didn't let it break him. In 2007, before a big Led Zeppelin reunion concert, Robert Plant apologized to John, even getting down on one knee to ask for forgiveness. It was a moment of healing, showing that despite the pain, there was still respect between them. While his bandmates lived the rock star life, John stayed true to his values. He married his wife Mo in 1967, and they've been together ever since. In 2015, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, a huge milestone, especially for a rock star. Mo was a nurse before they met, and they connected over their love of music and art at a party in the early 1960s. They have 3 daughters, Jacinda, Kira, and Tamara. Even with his crazy schedule, John always made time for his family. He wasn't perfect, though. The long tours and pressures of fame put stress on his marriage, but he and Mo worked hard to keep their family strong. Unlike many rock stars, John stayed away from scandals and focused on being a good husband and dad. His daughters grew up to be successful, an actress, a teacher, and a graphic designer, and John's proud of the stable home they built together. Inside Led Zeppelin, things weren't always smooth. John wanted to push the band's music in new directions, adding orchestral sounds and complex arrangements. Jimmy Page, on the other hand, wanted to keep things raw and heavy. This caused arguments, especially during albums like Houses of the Holy and Physical Graffiti. John's ideas made the band's music unique, but they also led to fights. By the time they recorded In Through the Outdoor, John and Robert Plant had to take charge because Jimmy Page and John Bonham were often absent, dealing with personal struggles. The band's sound changed, and not everyone was happy about it. John felt the weight of keeping things together, but he never gave up on the music. When Led Zeppelin broke up in 1980 after John Bonham's tragic death, John was heartbroken but determined to keep going. He started a solo career, releasing his first album, Zuma, in 1999. It was full of bold, bass-heavy tracks that mixed rock, jazz, and classical music. Fans and critics loved it because it showed John could shine on his own. In 2001, he released The Thunder Thief, diving even deeper into experimental sounds. He wasn't afraid to try new things, and that made him stand out. He also formed a supergroup called Them Crooked Vultures in 2009 with Dave Grohl and Josh Homme. Their album was a hit, proving John was still a force in music. He worked with all kinds of artists, from Peter Gabriel to Foo Fighters, and even played at charity events and festivals. His love for music never stopped growing. John's influence goes beyond his own songs. He inspired countless musicians with his bass playing and creative arrangements. Bands like Metallica looked up to him, even if he wasn't always impressed by them. One time, at a Metallica concert in 1987, someone asked John what he thought, and he just said, "Well, that's it." He always had high standards, and that pushed him to keep getting better. His work mixed rock with classical and folk, opening doors for other artists to experiment. He wasn't just a bassist. He was a musical genius who could play almost any instrument and write songs that touched people's hearts. Even now, at 78, John Paul Jones is still active in music. He's always looking for new projects, whether it's producing, performing, or mentoring young musicians. He's worked on film scores and TV music, adding even more to his legacy. Despite his busy career, he makes time for his family, balancing his love for music with his love for Mo and their daughters. His life shows that you can be a rock star and still stay true to yourself. He faced loneliness, tension, and heartbreak in Led Zeppelin, but he never let it stop him. His passion for music and his quiet strength carried him through. John Paul Jones's story is one of talent, struggle, and heart. He helped create some of the greatest music in history, but he did it his way, staying grounded even when the world around him was chaotic. His journey reminds us that success isn't just about fame, it's about staying true to who you are and the people you love. What do you think about John Paul Jones's incredible life? Have you ever felt like an outsider, even when you were part of something big? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into his story, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more stories about music legends. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.